Today we're having a look at the brand new Codex Space Marines for the 9th edition of Warhammer 40,000. If you've not already seen it, we've also got our Necron Codex review up today. Both of the books are up for pre-order at the moment and go on sale next week. So we were really excited by the 9th edition of Warhammer 40,000. The Indomitus box was a great set, and the new rule system seems really good for both narrative Crusade play and for match play tournament games. And yeah, the fairly chunky Space Marine Codex is up for pre-order today. So this book is absolutely jam-packed full of content for both Crusade and match play, along with a fairly considerable lore section at the start as well. So let's open it up and have a look what we get. So as we said in the Necron Codex review, the artwork and presentation and just style of this book is absolutely stunning. They have really knocked it out of the park with some really kind of evocative artwork that really captures the kind of grim darkness of the far future. Lore-wise, you know, we get to see the current state of the galaxy as it is, half of it being obscured by the Cicatrix Maledictum, but we also see some of the new conflicts that are developing across the galaxy, such as the Prior Nexus down here. And yeah, I really like these maps. I really hope they release this as kind of like a wall map, because I'd definitely stick that up on the wall of the hobby room. It's very nice. And yeah, we learn about the Adeptus Astartes, the various chapters and how they're organised. So, you know, if you're an old school Warhammer 40,000 player, a lot of this you may have, you know, read in the past in previous editions, but the way this is all collected together and presented is absolutely gorgeous. Such a good book just to read through for the lore and the getting the vibe of the Space Marines if you're wanting to start an army of them. And, you know, as we've said in previous 9th edition reviews, these little war zones where we get a little glimpse of a battle and what's happening there are really nice. Remind me of some of the stuff that was in the Imperial Armour books from Forge World. But yeah, if you are even slightly interested in Space Marines, this book will go through every unit, all the background, and kind of the complete tome of who the Space Marines are. What I really like is some of these artwork that we get on the different vehicles. I don't know, there's just some retro stuff in these books that remind me of when I got back into the hobby during 2nd edition. But yeah, loads and loads of stuff here. We then get a full write-up of all the main chapters. We get a look at successor chapters. So yeah, if you don't know which chapter you're going to be collecting, this book is going to make that really hard for you, because there's some really awesome information about all of them. Dark Angels, I think I'll be building my Indomitus stuff as. But I've been torn. Reading through this book, I've gone from White Scars to Ultramarines to Dark Angels. It's certainly got the hobby juices flowing. And yeah, it's nice to have it all collected here. Especially that, you know, we have got supplements coming out that will delve into this further. But to have the framework for each chapter, including the Death Watch, in the core book is a really cool thing. And yeah, it should give you inspiration for starting your own Space Marine forces. But yeah, lots of nice artwork depicting them. Lots of new kind of stories, narrative bits as well. There's a really cool story about some Space Marines taking on a traitor Titan, which is really cool. And then yeah, we get a really nice section detailing the markings and kind of colouring motifs of the Space Marines. So down to battlefield role and the company colours. We get squad marking kind of guidelines, which is really nice to see as a kind of support book to help you paint your forces and tie them together thematically. Because in the past, sometimes you just had to kind of wing the squad markings, but having the various examples there does make it a little bit easier for people maybe new to the hobby. So yeah, But what everyone's really interested in is the rules themselves. So if you are collecting a Space Marine army, this is what you'll need to play with your army through your battles of Warhammer 40,000 9th edition. We get some rules here on how an army is constructed. If a detachment only has Adeptus Astartes models in it, then we get some additional rules. This essentially gives you the objective secured ability in all your troops units, gives you access to your chapter tactics for your chosen chapter, and there's also a little bit of a restriction. You can have a maximum of 1 captain and 2 lieutenants in each detachment in your army, which I guess is there to limit any reroll aura shenanigans, just to rein that in. I think this is something we'll probably see across a lot of the armies, just to make sure that there's no funny business going on with some of the character picks. We then get the chapter tactics, and we get an absolute load of them in this book. So the Dark Angels, Grim Resolve, each time a model with this tactic makes an attack, unless the model is moved, and that includes piling and consolidation, you add 1 to the hit roll. So Dark Angels in the past always had lots of heavy weapons, plasma, that kind of stuff. So this encourages you to plant your feet and you'll get +1 to hit. In addition, they automatically pass any combat attrition tests. So that means if you fail a morale test, you'll lose 1 model, but then nobody will flee from combat attrition, making you quite reliable from a morale point of view, which is cool. The White Scars, they can charge after they advance or fall back, and they do not get a penalty for firing assault weapons when they advance. White Scars are all about bikes and being super quick, so really nice ability that reflects what they do. The Space Wolves, whenever they make a charge, or were charged, or heroically intervene, you add 1 to your hit roll. So yeah, in close combat, Space Wolves are going to be absolutely hitting like trucks. And every unit can heroically intervene as if they were characters as well. So if you've got nearby units and somebody foolishly gets within 3 inches of you, then, well, you're going to have a lot of Space Wolves in their face, which is pretty cool. Imperial Fists, when you're shooting a target, they don't get the benefits of light cover. So a nice way of shutting down some of those terrain benefits. They are meant to be siege masters after all. And also with bolt weapons, an unmodified hit of a 6 scores an additional 6. So exploding 6s for their bolt weapons. Yeah, lots of bolt weapons, flushing people out of cover. Imperial Fists would be pretty cool at that. The Crimson Fists, whenever they make a ranged attack against a unit that contains at least 5 more models than the attacker's unit, you add 1 to the hit roll. For the purposes of the tactic, vehicles count as 5 models. So essentially, they're the underdog. If you shoot somebody who's a bigger squad size, you'll get a benefit to hit. And when again they get, because they're a Imperial Fist successor, they get a similar rule there, where the bolt weapon will score additional hits on a 6. Black Templars can reroll advance and charge rolls, which is pretty scary. And they also get a 5+ shrug against mortal wounds. Just mortal wounds, mind, not normal wounds. So that's pretty handy. The Blood Angels, Red Thirst, they add 1 to advance and charge rolls. And whenever they make an attack, if they were charged, or performed heroic intervention, you add 1 to the attack's wound roll. That is a super powerful ability. It means that it makes it a lot easier for you to wound high toughness targets, and equally they're wounding on 3s against other Space Marines, so yeah, pretty good. Flesh Tearers, again they can add 1 to the attack wound roll. In addition, any unmodified wound roll of a 6 improves the armor penetration by 1, and that is cumulative with a bonus from the Assault Doctrine as well, so you could have some particularly high AP close combat Space Marine action going on there, which is pretty tasty. Iron Hands, they get a 6+ wound shrug against all wounds, which is handy. And models who with this tactic whose characteristics can change as they suffer damage are considered to have double the number of wounds remaining. So essentially with your degrading profiles, they don't degrade as quickly because you count as having double the wounds that you've got, which yeah, is a really good way of keeping you in the fight. The Ultramarines add 1 leadership to all models, and they can shoot when they fall back. However, you subtract 1 from the hit roll when you do so. So that's pretty cool. The Salamanders, forged in battle, they can re-roll 1 wound roll when resolving the attacks, and any attack with an armour penetration of -1 against them is treated as 0, so they can weather a bit more damage because you're reducing the AP, which is handy. The Raven Guard, each time a ranged attack is made against them that is more than 18 inches away, they count as having the benefit of light cover. And each time a ranged attack is made against an infantry unit with this tactic that was already in cover, they get the benefits of dense cover. So essentially they count as being in cover if they're further away from the enemy, and if they're already in cover they get additional cover benefits, which is pretty cool. And then the Death Watch, who traditionally have always been a different codex but are included in here. They will be getting a supplement, but it does mean you can use a lot of the units out of this book straight off the bat. Each time a model with this tactic makes an attack against a Xenos race, essentially, reroll hits of 1. And after both sides have finished deploying, select one battlefield roll until the end of the battle. Each time a model with this tactic makes an attack against an enemy unit, re-roll a wound of 1. So that's good, and because you can do that after you've deployed armies, you could tailor that to what's in your enemy's force. So yeah, I think that'll be a pretty cool ability. If, however, you've created your own chapter, or you're a successor chapter maybe, as we've seen in previous Space Marine books, you have the ability to create your own. You pick 2 successor chapter tactics out of this list and you can essentially craft your own chapter. So if you liked maybe some of these abilities that didn't quite fit into one of the main founding chapter ones, or I don't know, you've designed your own colour scheme Space Marine army, you want to pick 2 chapter tactics that fit your playstyle, you can do that, which is really cool. Obviously if you do that you might miss out on some of the chapter specific stratagems and war gear and upgrades and stuff that we'll see later on, but a really good way of giving some flavour to your own chapter creations. One of the new things we've seen added in these 2 new codexes for 9th edition are upgrades for characters. So where previously a lot of character upgrades were based around spending a command point to get a better version of that character, now they are pointed. So you will pay a number of points or power if you're playing Crusade, and you get a better version of that character. So a captain becomes a chapter master, a librarian can become a chief librarian, etc. And I think this is a much better way of doing this. Before, because there were so many ways of farming command points in the previous edition, it didn't really seem much of a penalty to lose a command point to get the increased version. Where now they have a points cost, it's a bit more balanced. You've got to make that choice whether the extra points is worth it for that upgraded character. So for me, that seems like a really good thing. And the upgrades are really cool. So you could go all out and upgrade all your characters, but obviously it's going to come at a points cost for you. If you're playing in a Crusade game, there is a specific requisition point spendage you've got to do as well to allow your character to get that upgrade. So kind of a double cost in Crusade, but for match play, yeah, basically just increases the points cost. So really, really cool. And it's stuff that we've seen in previous editions, like getting additional psychic powers, being able to do additional litanies, having some better auras and relics they can take. So yeah, really like that. It's a really nice way of doing it, and it reminds me of kind of like older editions of the game. And again, I'm sure we'll see this throughout all the new books that are coming on the horizon. As for stratagems, we've got a load again. We've got them now split into different types of categories. So there could be, and there are rules that interact with certain categories of stratagem, and we may well see rules in the future that interact or shut down specific types of stratagem as well. So it's a really nice way of being able to balance what the stratagems do and how effective they are by putting them into these different pools of categories. Now, Jay is going to do a full write-up of the book over on the website, so I'll have linked it in the description so you can have a look at that. But there's some really cool stuff in here. A lot of the stuff we've seen, in previous books, some new stuff, some stuff that works with some new keywords as well. So, for example, smoke launchers have gone from all vehicles, and instead they get the smokescreen keyword. So in order to get the benefits of your smoke launchers, you now use the smokescreen stratagem to allow a smokescreened unit to be -1 to hit, which is great because you don't have to forsake shooting anymore. A lot of the times in the past, it seemed a bit of a waste to fire smoke if you had some decent weapons. Where now, with the stratagem, you can do that as well. There's a lot less in the way of upgraded units as well, because there's now a points cost for upping your characters to better versions of characters, and things like veteran intercessors are now a unit. There's really just kind of extra relics, extra warlord traits that you can get before the battle, which again I think is a good change. I'd rather those better units be costed myself, just because it makes the game more balanced. But yeah, loads of cool stuff there. Again, if you get the data cards, you will get all of these. We get an assortment of warlord traits, both normal and vanguard ones, and then some specific ones for each of the chapters as well, which is cool. So even though these will probably have some additional abilities in their supplement books when they come out, and obviously some of the supplement books are already out for the previous edition, we do get one for each chapter in here as well, which is really handy, including the Death Watch again. So we get lots of cool relics as well that you can give to your warlord or any characters in your army. Again, a bit of an assortment of lots of different things, some really fun stuff. So the Armour Indomitors gives you an extra wound, gives you a 2+ wound save, and once per battle you can give them a 3+ invulnerable save as well. So that seems pretty tasty. There's also a really cool variant power sword, the Burning Blade, strength +3, AP -5, 2 damage. So that'll be really good at cleaving through other Space Marines and filthy heretics. So yeah, nice assortment of different things here. Again, there's some stuff that we've seen in the past, like the Tome of Malcador. It's, yeah, nice little assortment. I think Jay will again be on the website having a bit of a dive into the ones that he likes the most. We get complete lists for the various librarian disciplines as well, so your psychic powers that your units can cast. Again, split over the different flavours of Psyker that you can get in the book as well. So that's all gathered together here. And again, litanies of battle, we have a 4 list as well. So for your chaplains, their various abilities they can have. So yeah, and everything's gathered together in the book, so it makes it really handy as a reference source. Onto some cool new stuff in the book though. Something we've seen in both of the new 40k codexes are army-specific secondary objectives. So if you're playing a match play game and you're picking your secondaries, you can select these secondaries to use in addition to the ones in the core rulebook. The idea being that they will reflect the way the army plays and the different abilities that they have in order to encourage you to play towards the playstyle of that army, which makes sense. You know, it's something I'm interested to see in all the future codexes, because it should mean that people will bring the units and play in the way that they would do in the lore, which for me is a big plus. So, purge the enemy, we have got Codex Warfare. If you select this objective, you score victory points as followed. Score 1 victory point at the end of the battle for each enemy unit that was destroyed as a result of an attack made with a heavy or grenade weapon in the Devastator Doctrine. You then get 1 victory point for each unit that was destroyed with rapid fire or assault weapons during the Tactical Doctrine, and you get 1 victory point at the end of the battle for each unit destroyed with pistol or melee weapons during the Assault Doctrine. So essentially this is encouraging you to kill units during the matching doctrine. I think this is going to be a pretty reliable one for Space Marines to get. If you can kill 15 units over the course of the game, 5 in each doctrine, then easy points for you. Against, you know, obviously against some armies you might struggle to do that, so it might not be an auto pick, but it's definitely a good source of victory points ticking through over the course of the game. We've also got Shock Tactics that score 3 victory points at the end of the battle round if you control one or more objective markers that were controlled by your opponent at the end of the battle start of the battle round. So essentially, if you can take an objective off somebody, you will get 3 victory points at the end of your battle round. It is 1 or more, so if you take over every objective marker, you still only get the 3 victory points. But again, you know, with all your drop pod shenanigans and being quite mobile, this is probably a good shout for Space Marine armies to take this one as well. And then we've got Oath of Moment. So if you select this objective, you score victory points at the end of each battle round if you achieve the following 3 oaths. Oath of Valour. Score a victory point if any character, vehicle or monster was destroyed by an Astartes unit during your battle round. Again, pairs quite well with this because you're trying to do that anyway. Oath of Honour, score a victory point at the end of the battle round as long as Adeptus Astartes units from your army, as long as no Adeptus Astartes units failed a morale test and no Adeptus Astartes units fell back during the battle round. So again, as long as they don't fail a morale and you've got pretty good leadership as a Space Marine and you don't fall back, you'll just get a victory point. And the Oath of Duty, score 2 victory points at the end of the battle round if an Adeptus Astartes unit from your army is wholly within 6 inches of the centre of the battlefield. So this is encouraging you to take the centre ground and fight from there. Again, I think that's a pretty reliable source of victory points ticking through, and I really like how these are themed to the army, so yeah, definitely like them. So one of our favourite parts of 9th edition are the Crusade rules, and these are being expanded in every codex, which is really cool to see. So we get, just like we did with the Secondaries, we get some Space Marine specific agendas, which again kind of play off the way the army would operate, which is really cool to see. I do like the Recover Gene Seed one. So essentially your apothecaries need to recover the gene seed of any fallen characters. And if you do so, you get requisition points as well, which is a really cool way of representing your apothecaries getting the resources to keep the chapter going. We get some new Space Marine specific requisitions as well. So even in Death I Serve, essentially this lets you inter any of your fallen characters in a dreadnought, which again from a narrative point of view is amazing. So, you know, if you've got a character who's fought heroically, but they've gained a couple of battle scars over the course of the campaign, you can choose to replace that datasheet with a dreadnought one. If it's a Psyker, it can be a Psyker dreadnought. Yeah, I really like this. It's going to be really cool from a narrative point of view for continuing the story of your army. And yeah, I just think it's going to be some great fun. You could put some great touches, like various relics the guys gathered on the carapace of the dreadnought maybe. Yeah, I think there's some really cool stuff you could do with that. Chapter commands, essentially it lets you upgrade your characters to the better versions. Now you can only do it when they gain the heroic or legendary rank, and you also have to pay the increased power costs of them. But yeah, it will let you take those better versions of characters. I quite like this, that your guy has to level up first before you're able to do it. You know, it represents them earning that rank rather than just getting it immediately, which I think is really fun. Indomitus Crusade Veterans is a way of just giving a core Primaris unit some extra experience. So if you've maybe got some units that are lagging behind and you want to give them an upgrade, you can just spend a requisition point to automatically give them 6 experience and level them up, which again is not really handy. Sometimes, depending on what agendas you pick, you might have some units that are struggling a little bit for experience. So being able to pay this this requisition resource in order to level them up, I think that's really handy. And then finally, the Rubicon Primaris. If you have got a non-Primaris character, you can put them through the Rubicon Primaris. There's a bit of a gamble. They could just horrifically die during the process because, you know, it is a very dangerous process. You roll a d6, on a 1 they're dead, they're gone, that's it. But on a 2+, you can then replace them with a Primaris unit with the same keyword. Again, narratively, this is a great way to tell the story of your guy earning honours, finally crossing the Rubicon Primaris and becoming a better version of themselves. So yeah, really fun. If you've not played Crusade, I'd definitely give it a go because there's some really fun stuff that makes for some brilliant games. We've thoroughly enjoyed all the ones that we've played, and I'll link one of our battle reports in the video as well. Hopefully, by the time you watch this, there should be a Necrons versus Space Marines Crusade battle using these new rules as well, because we're keen to share those with you. As in the main rulebook, you can give your units battle traits, and these are specifically geared around different types of Astartes. So you've got stuff that fits them. What we found in the core rule stuff, that there's only so many different upgrades you can have. Anything that expands to the number of options you've got is good in my book. So some really cool picks there. The new thing that you can do as well in your Crusade forces is give your captain honorifics. So when you would gain a battle honour, so from levelling up, instead of giving them any other upgrade, you can instead give them one of these honorifics, and they will give them different abilities in the battle. And some of these you'll recognise from previous editions and from the Horus Heresy, for example. And yeah, nice bit of flavour for your force. There's some really cool stuff like starting the battle with extra command points, whether you're the defender or the attacker, or being able to get relics for 0 requisition points because, you know, he's the master of relics. So yeah, not massive upgrades, but some cool stuff from a narrative point of view, and again, gives you a good excuse to give some background to your characters, which, let's face it, Crusade, that's what it's all about, telling the story. As you would expect, you also get some new relics as well, again split over the Artificer, Antiquity and Legendary relics, depending on the rank of your character. With some really cool stuff that you can give to them, including a Paragon Blade for lovers of the Horus Heresy. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to give a Paragon Blade to one of my guys, just for old time's sakes. We then see some gorgeous examples of Studio Crusade forces. So Darren Latham, miniatures designer, former Evermetal painter, general legend, a Crusade force that he's put together. So yeah, really interesting to see what people do with their Crusade forces. So then we get on to the rules proper. So you select your chapter. Obviously, if you've got a successor or your own homebrew chapter, you can pick from the options that we saw earlier in the book. Some of the chapters do not adhere to the Codex Astartes, so they have some variances in how you put together the force. So for example, the Black Templars cannot take librarians. The Dark Angels cannot take Stern Guard veterans and Vanguard veterans. The Death Watch cannot take assault squads, attack bike squads, Devastator squads, Stern Gun veteran squads, tactical squads and scout squads. Obviously they were going to have some of their own variants in their supplement book when it comes out in a couple of weeks. And then the Space Wolves in a similar way can't take apothecaries, assault squads, Devastator squads, Stern Guard veteran squads, tactical squads and Vanguard veteran squads. Again, because they've got some unique units that replace them. But really, you've got a lot of freedom, especially for the Death Watch, who in the past have missed out on a lot of the goodies that armies have. Being able to have free reign, pretty much, at the rest of the units in this book is going to make some really interesting Death Watch armies. And I know Dave is very excited to put together his Death Watch, because that's something that's always put him off in the past, that he was quite limited with the units that he could take. So abilities that Astartes units get: Angels of Death, you gain And They Shall Know No Fear, Bolt of Discipline, Shock Assault and Combat Doctrines. Very similar to how they were in the past, but there are some minor differences. And They Shall Know No Fear, for example, is no longer a reroll for your morale. Instead, when they suffer combat attrition, you ignore any or all modifiers. So if you're under half strength, for example, you're not losing additional models. So bear that in mind, because it is going to be slightly easier to fail morale checks now as a Space Marine. You're just less impacted by the effects of it. Bolt of Discipline, pretty much the same. So if you're within half range, you can rapid fire. If you're infantry and you remain stationary, you can rapid fire. However, Centurion models are exempt from that. And if you're a Terminator or a Biker, you can always rapid fire. So I'm sure Centurions used to be included under these, so they still have to be within half range now to rapid fire. But otherwise, very, very similar to the previous rules for it. As is Shock Assault, where you get your additional attacks for charging, being charged, or heroically intervening. And again, combat doctrines are much the same. So these will change throughout the battle, starting with the Devastator Doctrine, which improves AP of heavy and grenade weapons, then the Tactical, which is rapid fire and assault weapons, and then finally the Assault Doctrine, which is pistol and melee weapons. You get a few abilities on how you deploy your army as well. Combat squads work much the same. You can split them into 2 equal squads and they'll operate independently. Death from Above is essentially your deep strike rule, so drop pods and the like can come in that way. Concealed Positions is for your scouts. They can set up anywhere on the battlefield that's more than 9 inches away from the enemy deployment zone and any enemy models. So good for getting a bit of a forward position for your guys. Outflank, I believe, is a new one. When they set up, they can go within 6 inches of any battlefield edge and more than 9 inches away from any enemy models. So that means they could potentially come behind enemy lines in their deployment zone, which is quite interesting. And then Teleport Strike is essentially your Terminator deep striking. So yeah, stuff like Terminators coming in from reserves. Normal rules, more than 9 inches away. So now we get onto the profiles. Now there's 90 something data sheets in here, so I'm not going to look at them all here. I think Jay is going to do a bit of analysis over on the website to go through kind of the core ones. I will point out any kind of major changes that I notice as you're going along. So, for example, your captain only affects core units now, so he won't be able to use that ability to make tanks, for example, reroll hits of 1, which is quite a big change, really. It means that the way your army moves around the battlefield is going to be a little bit different. Captain on a bike, I don't remember being a profile, but there is one now. So if you want to do a Raven Wing force, for example, you've got another character you can throw in there. And interestingly, any unit that you'd expect to be Raven Wing, so all your kind of fast Raven Wingy units, do have a little call out here where they gain the Raven Wing keyword. So it's quite interesting that's baked into the main book before the Dark Angel supplement, which I believe is out early next year. Yeah, I'm tempted to do some more Dark Angel, so I may have been looking at some combos of stuff there. Likewise, any units that you would expect to be in the Deathwing have a similar call out, so pretty cool that it's kind of future-proofed in here. Again, your lieutenants, it's only core units that they affect with their abilities. And yeah, we have pretty much, I don't think anything has been put into Legends since the last book. We've got a lot of units in here, giving you a lot of options. And as we'll see in a bit, some of the older units have got some new tricks as well. Primaris Chaplain is new with this release. He'll look really cool going alongside your Outriders and all your new fast stuff from Indomitus. So yeah, really nice model as well. Essentially, it's a Primaris Chaplain, but he's on a bike. So no massive differences in his rules, but yeah, definitely a cool one. And again, it calls out that if it's Dark Angels, he's Raven Wing. If it's a Space Wolf, he becomes a Wolf Priest. So lots of stuff that makes them fit with all the various chapters that the book interacts with, which is really good to see. We've got the new Primaris Tech Marine, again looks really cool. He's got the Awakened Machine Spirits rule, so he can pick a vehicle within 3 inches of it, and you can add one to their hit rolls. So that kind of makes up for the fact that your characters don't get the auras affecting vehicles. At least your Tech Marine can make them better shots, which is pretty cool. And equally, he can repair vehicles as well. Standard Tech Marine has the same rules. It's good to see the Primaris variant as well for any keyword shenanigans you've got going on. Then we get on to the troops. Now you notice the core keyword we've mentioned a few times. Various units within this book have that core keyword, which means they are affected by a lot of the auras and rerolls and abilities. Not everything has it, so just make sure that you're aware your units are going to get affected by those abilities. Assault Intercessors, not a massive difference from what we've seen in Indomitus, bar the fact that the Sergeant can take a Plasma Pistol, Power Sword or Thunderhammer, in addition to a Power Fist. So a few more weapon options. The base squad's armed as is, though, with the Heavy Bolt Pistol and Chainsword, so no massive differences there. We've got the new Heavy Intercessor squad, which look really tasty. So these guys are in Gravis armour, Toughness 5, 3 wound intercessors, with some really nice looking bolt variant weapons. So you've got 3 different bolt rifles, 3 different heavy bolters, and yeah, they look really good. I can see a squad of these doing Primaris eradication duties with that Executioner bolt rifle, AP -2 and 2 damage. And bearing in mind, a lot of units in this book have gone up to 2 wounds as well. So stuff that does multiple damage is going to be really handy now. I think in my Dark Angels, I'm definitely going to build them around these. They're a troops choice. They're a core choice. Obviously, you're going to get less shots because they're heavy. And it probably suits the more stationary chapters, such as the Dark Angels. But yeah, there's definitely some options there. Equally, if you want to forsake the AP, you could go for the Assault 3 variants as well and put out an absolute load of fire. So yeah, really like the heavy intercessors. Infiltrators and incursors have changed a little bit. The mines that they previously had, they don't plant and then move on. It's just a case of when an enemy unit finishes with an engagement range, they can say the mine's gone off and they take some damage. A little bit less bookkeeping maybe, and just refinements in the rules really. Tactical squads have now got 2 wounds each. So this is an interesting change. It makes those old tactical squads that you might have gathering dust on your shelf quite good. They could be really good for holding objectives, especially if you put them in a drop pod or something and try and pepper the battlefield early on to get those objectives. Double the wounds is going to make them tougher to clear out, so I can definitely see some people taking tactical marines again. So yeah, again, as for some of the other units, I'm only going to really touch on the ones that are massively changed. We've got the Blade God Ancient out of Indomitus. We have got the Veteran Intercessor Squad is now a profile, so rather than spending a command point to upgrade them, it is just a new elite choice, which I much prefer, which is really cool. Blade God Veteran can be taken up to units of 6 now, which is handy since there's another box of 3 coming out, so have a nice varied squad of them. Again, they gain the Deathwing keyword if they're in a Dark Angels army and the Wolf Guard keyword if they're in a Space Wolves army. I don't think there's any new options on there. Plasma Pistol or Neo Volkite Pistol on the Blade God Sergeant. Again, they're still really good. They were awesome from Indomitus. Again, a lot of old units, again, all with 2 wounds, making them worth a look at now. Before, in the previous edition, you'd really just take Primaris stuff because the kind of old power armor based guys really paled a little bit in comparison to them. But now I think there's definitely an argument for filling your force with some of the older Space Marine units. The Judicia. So again, Reavers and Aggressors have got the core keyword, so they will be affected by any auras. Terminators, as cool as ever. Storm Shields have changed a little bit, so they've got a 4% vulnerable save, and then you add 1 to the saving throws for them as well. So that doesn't put us in a situation where you've got a 1+ save, because don't forget you're modifying the dice roll, so it will still interact with enemies' AP, which is a much better way of doing it. I know there's a bit of confusion in Age of Sigmar with the Bastillodon with its unrenderable 1+ save, which was a bit weird. So yeah, they haven't fallen into the same trap here, which is good. Centurions, really cool, 4 wounds each. I think these are going to be pretty tasty. They're not core, and obviously they don't fall under the bolter discipline as well until they get to half range, but still, really, really good choice. Dreadnoughts as ace as they ever have been. Again, a lot of weapons have been rejigged as well, giving them extra AP and extra damage, making things a lot more deadly than they used to be. Which again, I think is a really cool thing. It keeps those older units interesting. Outriders, sadly, can only be taken in units of 3. I was hoping they'd be able to take in units of 6. Again, because I want to do a Ravenwing army. But yeah, limited to just the 3 of them. Again, still really cool units. And the model looks ace. We've got the new Invader as well, which can be taken in units of 3 with a kind of anti-infantry weapon and an anti-tank weapon. Bike squads still exist, and you can include an assault bike as part of the squad. Equally, the attack bike exists at its own profile as well. Inceptors and suppressors, I don't think have really changed too much. Again, they've got the core keyword though, so they will interact with any auras that you've got. We then get the 3 new Storm Speeders. So essentially they're the same vehicle, but with different weapon loadouts. So you've got an anti-infantry one, you've got an anti-tank one, and then one that's kind of designed for getting people out of cover. They've got high AP weapons, but lower strength in this one. I quite like the Hammer Strike. I think that looks quite cool for the damage it puts out. But if you need some higher strength weapons, you might want to go for the Thunder Strike. Yeah, I think we'll see a few of these in armies because they look really good. Hellblasters have got the core keyword as well, so they again can be affected by your auras, which is nice to see. Eliminators, still ace as they always have been. They still have the ability to ignore Lookout Sir. So, you know, in this edition, taking out characters is going to be pretty good, and it's harder to do so, you know, if they're nearby units of 3 or more. So being able to ignore that is a really great ability. Eradicators, we've got an Indomitus, we've got a new weapon option in there as well. So we've got the heavy melter rifle, if you want some additional damage on your blow, which is cool. Bear in mind it's a heavy weapon rather than assault. We've got the new Fire Strike servo turrets, which is another new model that's coming out alongside this book. These are really cool. They're only movement 3, and they don't, you know, they don't drop in or anything. You do deploy them on the battlefield, but they have got some really cool weapons. Considering they've got ballistic skill 2+ as well, a couple of these sat in your deployment zone, peppering enemy units, I think will be really, really good. Yeah, so I'm interested to see how they perform in game. Obviously all the old Space Marine tanks are back. You'll see you've got the smoke screen keyword on them as well, so you can use that stratagem to essentially get the benefits of popping smoke without having to sacrifice your shooting, which is really cool. We get the new Gladiator variant kit, so these are essentially flying predators, and again we've got a couple of variants on these based on the weapon loadouts, based on what the target's going to be. So I really like these. Again, I think we'll see a couple of these in lists. Multi-melters as well, really good. I believe there'll be an FAQ out to change any army that uses weapons that match these amended ones in this book will get the benefit. So all multi-melters will be heavy 2, strength 8, AP -4, damage 6, D6, sorry. And then if you're within half range, it's D6 plus 2, rather than the old rule of roll 2 and pick the best. So yeah, that looks really cool. And yeah, look, Land Raiders, every profile that's ever been is in here. Repulsor's had a bit of a tweak. It no longer fires the big gun twice. It instead gets to add 1 to the hit roll. So that does reduce the damage output of the Repulsor a little bit. It's still got an absolute truckload of shots though. And then your various transports, again, you can still only carry non-Primaris stuff in the Rhino and Razorback, and the Impulsor's more geared towards Primaris-based stuff. Drop pods are really good. So I think we might see a resurgence of tactical squads and drop pods for taking objectives, because it specifies that regardless of rules in play, you can put them in reserves and they will come down turn 1, 2 or 3. So I believe it's probably the only thing in the game that can deep strike turn 1. So it might be good to put some pressure on objectives early on in the game. Looks pretty good to me anyway. We then get the various Storm Raven builds. Flyers are pretty good in this edition, so I think they'll be pretty good. And then finally we have the Hammerfall Bunker, which is the new terrain piece. This is essentially a gun turret / bunker that shoots things lots. The heavy bolters or flamers on it will shoot every target within range, which is really cool. It's only got ballistic skill 4+, so slightly less effective than a normal Space Marine. But the fact that these heavy bolters are going to be shooting every target within 36 inches. Stick one of these, you know, in front of your deployment zone, you've got a nice area of the battlefield. There's a bit of a kill zone where people don't want to end up because they are going to get shot by that. Equally, the main gun's really good as well. So yeah, I think we'll see a few of these bunkers. It's nice that we're seeing more army-specific buildings within the game. So then we get nice little profiles, breaking down all the weapons for reference, making it easy to find it. But one of the biggest improvements in this book is how the points are displayed. So everything is split by battlefield role, and then it's in alphabetical order with page references and clear costings of everything. I think this is going to make it so much easier to build your army list and, you know, decide what units to include. And in the past, in 8th edition, it has always been a little bit of a nightmare writing army list because it wasn't very clear how they had everything laid out with the units in one section and the weapons in another section. By having the specific weapons that relate to those units beneath them, they can make it a lot easier. It also means that they can, in chapter approved, when they release, you know, revised version of these, they can have identical weapons on different units cost different points as well if they need to. But yeah, absolute load of stuff in here. Now bear in mind this is just the stuff from this codex, so any chapter specific units will be in the relevant chapter specific book. So I think we've got Space Wolves, Blood Angels and Death Watch coming in a couple of weeks, and then I believe the Dark Angels are in January. Presumably with the other ones following, any armies with current codex supplements can still use the abilities in there. It's all perfectly valid, so I imagine we'll probably see new versions at some point, but for the ones that came in the last wave, probably a little bit further off than those ones. But yeah, really, really good stuff. What's also really handy is that we get a full glossary in the back covering any of the kind of key words and terms that you'll come across during your battles. And finally, we get a nice reference guide to act as a little player aid, so you don't have to page through the book to try and find these different abilities. And again, they've all got page references and all the rules and stuff on there to make it really easy to follow. So that is that is a look at the Space Marine Codex. For some more detail, if you head over to spruesandbrews.com, Jay is doing a write-up on the units and his kind of top picks and his analysis into what units he thinks are going to be worth taking. But yeah, we are really looking forward to playing some games of Warhammer 40,000 with these books. They definitely seem to be the best codexes they put out so far, just from layout and content. So really excited to see what the future holds. If you have any feedback for us, let us know in the comments below, and we will be getting some battle reports up soon as well. If you're interested in Necrons, we also have our sister video to this one covering the Necron Codex, and then hopefully very soon we will have a Necrons versus Space Marines Crusade battle report coming out, followed by a matched play one in a week or two. But yeah, until next time, we will see you later.